Hi everyone, welcome to Group 2 presentations. My name is Lim Xin Yi, matrix number 271383. So we are here today to discuss in detail Marx's law of motions of capitalism and briefly compare that theory with the theory of economic development by Adam Smith. So first of all, I'm going to share about the theory of history. So it provides a framework for analyzing human society and the law of its development. So in every historical era, the forces of productions, FOP, produce a set of relations of productions, which is ROP, that support them. However, the static FOP and ROP are contradict. So the FOP, such as the technology, type of capital, skill level of labor, are dynamic and continuously changing, while the ROP, which including the rules, property relations, the social relations among people, are static. So the mechanism for overthrowing old society is the class struggle. Therefore, Karl Marx saw society evolving through the 6 stages from the primitive communism to communism. So the details of these 6 stages have been discussed by Group 1. So in every stage, conflict arose between the oppressing classes and also the oppressed class. So basically, the oppressing class is those that own the means of productions, while the oppressed class are those that do not own the means of productions, but use the means of productions for the benefit of oppressing group. So therefore, you can see that there is no antagonistic classes, no exploitations, and no class struggle in the primitive communism for both classes. So in the stage of slavery, the class conflict has begun. So the oppressive class become the slave owner, while the oppressed class is just a slave, where private property appears. For instance, people held land in common ownership and jointly cooperated towards a meager living the nature. So during the feudalism, there are many classes such as the king, lord, serf, and some little more of the slaves. So the oppressing group became the landowners, while the oppressed class was just a serf, which they are allowed to work in a few days per week on the land assigned to them, but were forced to work the other days on the loaned land. So next is the main stage that we need to discuss, which is capitalism. So due to their wealth, the bourgeoisie has power to control pretty much of everything, and the proletarians has little and no to say in any political issues. Moreover, the bourgeoisie have every incentive to pay workers the lowest wage possible and offer the poorest working conditions in order to maximize their profit. While under the socialism, profit motive and free market were eliminated as a major guiding force for the economy. So it means that the manager is somehow free to exchange their labor. For them, the worker is a little more than a cog in a heartless and brutal capitalist machine. So the oppressing class will be the state manager, while the oppressed class was just a worker. So at the last stage, which is the communism, is an extreme form of socialism which aims to set up classes, moneyless and stateless society. Therefore, communism has no classes and also no conflict. Under the law of motion of capitalism, Marx tried to point out the economic law of motion of modern society by using his theory of history. But he does not draw a blueprint for socialism because this is not his objective. However, he tries to analyze the changing forces of productions within the capitalism society. He wants to try to determine the process through the forces of production within the capitalism would produce their antithesis, which is an argument to challenge the previous thesis, and inevitable demise, just as slavery and the feudalism earlier. As a result, he uses the six important interrelated concepts to construct his theory of capitalism, which is all this above, and all these important concepts will be shared later on. So here is a diagram of Marx's law of motion of capitalism. And let's start with the labor theory of value. So in the labor theory of Marx's starting point was the analysis of commodity in capitalist society. So in his point of view, commodity is something produced for profit and able to satisfy humans' wants. So the commodity may satisfy these wants directly as a means of subsistence or indirectly as a means of production. So commodity has both use value and exchange value, but he will be focused on exchange value. So he say that the socially necessary labor time, which is the SNLT, can determine the value of commodity, which considering the normal conditions of productions and the average skills and also the intensity of labor at the time. So besides, the SNTL includes the direct labor in producing the commodity, the value transferred to the commodity, as well as the labor embodied in the machinery and raw materials that use up during the process of production. So let's say the average labor time contained in a pair of shoes is 10 hours, and the SNTL is equal to the value of the shoe, even though different workers will take different time to produce a commodity. So if the worker is lazy and take about 20 hours to produce the commodity, so the value is 10 hours. However, if the worker use technology and its efficiency, so he just use about 5 hours to produce the commodity, but the value is still 10 hours. Back to here, I'm going to move to the next concept, which is the theory of exploitation. So the definition of exploitation is the action or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. So this theory states that profit is the exploitation of wage earners by their employers, while the labor theory of value claims that the value is intrinsic in a product according to the amount of labor that has been spent on producing the product. So that's all for my part, and I will pass it to my teammate. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Getzening. My metric number is 269635. Today I will present the Marx law of motion of capitalism. I will present the part 2, theory of exploitation. The theory of exploitation has 5 parts. There is labor power versus labor time, surplus value, the rate of surplus value, the rate of profit, the transformation problem. The first is labor power versus labor time. Labor power. What is labor power? Labor power refers to a person's ability to work and produce community. Labor power is itself a community that is bought and sold in the market. It is what the capitalists need to make profit. What is labor time? Labor time is the actual process and duration of work, considering normal condition of production and the average skill and intensity of labor at the time. Labor time includes the direct labor in producing the community. What determines the value of labor power? That is the socially necessary labor time, SNLT. SNLT required to produce the cultural necessity of life consumed by the labor and their families. For example, if necessity produced in 4 hours per day, the value of community labor power is 4 hours of labor power per day. If the productivity of labor doubles, the article of subsistence equal produced in 2 hours per day, and the value of labor power over 50%. Next, there are 2 very important points require emphasis here. First, employer pay wage to the workers equivalent to the workers' labor power. That is, they pay the going market wage. Market wage will equal labor power equal SNLT. Second, market wage is sufficient only to purchase the cultural subsistences required for survival and perpetuation of the labor force. Next, the surplus value. The exploitation of workers cannot be occurred when the productivity of the labor is so low, when the labor power equal to the labor time. Exploitation of labor only arises when the worker can produce more in a day than they must consume. Then the employers pay the workers the full market value of their labor power, but the daily pay equal only part of the value the labor creates. Capitalists are in a position to set the length of the workdays and in a sense say to the worker, work the number of workers that we set or choose not to work for us at all. The necessity forces the workers to opt to work, but the labor time they spend during the workdays create a larger sum of value than the value of their own labor power. The owners of the means of production render a surplus value. Next, the rate of surplus value or the rate of exploitation. The formula of rate of surplus value is unpaid labor time divide paid labor time times 100. Marx designed the part of capital invest in consistent capital, C, such as machine and raw material, variable capital, such as wage. Surplus value is the extra value it produces which the capitals take without compensating the workers who produce it. The figure 10.1 shows the Marx theory of exploitation. The axis X shows the workday hours. The axis Y shows the total cost of production per hours of works. From the figure we know the capitalists employ the labor whom they supply with the required machine to convert raw cotton into yen. The SNLT equals 6 hours of the communities that particular workers and their families must consume each day. We suppose that in 6 hours of labor time, 1 to 6 hours equal 3 ringgit for the labor power plus 10 ringgit for the cotton plus 2 ringgit for the machine equal 15 ringgit. We assume that 15 ringgit equal to the normal profit. According to the Marx, the capitalists pay the workers the market value of he or she labor power, and 6 hours of the labor time, 1 to 6 hours, is sufficient to produce output to pay for their labor power, RM3 ringgit. They have one way capitalists can gain the profit is by lengthening the working days for the workers without paying for their extra labor time. When the labor time larger than the labor power. For example, in part B, by forcing the workers to work an extra 6 hours, 7 to 12 hours, the capitalists secure a surplus value of 3 ringgit. The rate of exploitation equals 3 ringgit of unpaid labor time divided by the 3 ringgit paid labor time times 100 equal 100% of the rate of exploitation. If the capitalist wants to gain extra surplus value, we can show in the part C, they can force their workers to work for another 6 hours, 13 to 18 hours. The capitalists secure another surplus value of 3 ringgit. The rate of exploitation equal 3 plus 3 unpaid labor time divided by 3 paid labor time times 100 equal to 200%, so that the rate of exploitation is 200%. So we can conclude that by asking the workers to work extra hours, labor can be exploited by their employer to gain the profit. Next, this slide shows that the alternative approach to calculate the rate of surplus value or exploitation. The formula of the rate of surplus value or rate of exploitation is unpaid labor time divided paid labor time times 100. If we assume that normal paid working hours is 6 hours, first, if extend to 12 hours, so that 6 hours unpaid labor time divided by 6 hours paid labor time times 100 equal to 100%. Number 2, if extend to 18 hours, that is equal 12 unpaid labor time divide 6 paid labor time times 100 equal 200% rate of surplus value. Third, if extend to 15 hours equal 9 unpaid labor time divide 6 paid labor time times 100 equal to 150%. Fourth, if extend to 9 hours equal 3 unpaid labor time divided by 6 paid labor time is equal to 50%. Next, there are two models of exploitation. First, absolute surplus value is length the working days without a corresponding increase the labor compensation, such as work longer. Second, relative surplus value is decrease the necessary labor time needs to reproduce labor power. This is accomplished by attributing the value of labor power by increase the productivity, such as increase the productivity. For example, if the working days were shortened from the 12 hour to the 10 hour, the 12 hour is 6 hours for the workers and 6 hours for the capitalists. When they decrease to the 10 hours, 4 hours for the worker and 6 hours for the capitalist. For the 12-hour rate of exploitation, 6 is unpaid labor time divided by the 6 is paid labor time times by 100 equal to 100% rate of exploitation. But when it decreased to the 10 hours, 6 for the unpaid labor time divided by 4 paid labor time times 100 equal to 150%. So we can conclude that the rate of the exploitation will reach from the 100% to 150%. That's all from me. I will pass to the next group member. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Li Shuhui, matric number 2707113. Now I would like to continue the presentations. The rate of profit. Here is the formula of the rate of profit. S represents surplus value, C represents constant capital, and V represents variable capital. When C plus V, we will get the total capital invest is also equal total cost of production. This is an example to calculate the rate of profit. The data of this table we get from the previous slide from figure 10.1. Based on this table, we know that the total cost of production for hour 1 to 12 is equal to 27 ringgit, while the surplus value 3 ringgit we get from here. Use the formula, we know that the rate of profit for hour 1 to 12 is equal to 11.1%, while for the hour 1 to 18, the cost of production is equal to 39 ringgit. The surplus value 6 ringgit, we add these two. And finally, we know that the rate of profit for hour 1 to 18 is equal to 15.4%. Now I will continue the Marx law of motions at the part capital accumulations and falling rate of profit. First of all, what is capital accumulations? Capital accumulations is an increase in asset from investment and profits. It is one of the building blocks of a capitalist economy. Individual and company do the investment and lead to a profit, and profit enable more capital accumulations. Next is the falling rate of profits. According to Marx, the rate of profit received by capitalists will decrease in long runs based on the previous equations. This is due to increased efficiency in mechanizations and labor-saving inventions. Mechanization is the desire to improve productivity by using machinery, while labor-saving inventions is the replacement of labor with machines. This creates machines which call organic compositions of capital. The formula of organic compositions of capital is constant capital divided by total capital. From the previous two equations, we can derive an alternative of profit rate equations. From these equations, the rate of profit are varied directly with the rate of surplus value and inversely with organic compositions of capital. When capitalists invest more machinery and less labor power, the organic compositions of capital will increase and the rate of profit will decrease. This is very important for Marx to prove that capitalism faces internal contradictions that hasten its demise. Marx believed that the dynamic of capitalism will increase the organic compositions of capital. There are two reasons to show that why capitalists still use machinery instead of labor when they know their profit will fall. First is promoting efficient productions. They will temporarily receive extra profit because they use more machinery. The cost of production will fall. The product price will fall, and players behind trend toward mechanizations will not survive. The firm who cannot compete will leave the market. Second reason, The greater the efficiency of production, the lower the value of labor power. The number of hours required to produce the subsistence will less and create more total amount of profit produced per working day. Marx persists certain offsetting force to the falling rate of profit. First, the intensity of exploitation increased by forcing the worker to increase their pace of work or by lengthening their working day. Second, wage temporarily may be cut below their value. Third, the constant capital may be cheapened. When the machinery and raw material become cheaper, the risk in the organic composition of capital and the fall in the rate of profit both become slower. And the fourth, growing populations in relation to job and increased technological unemployment are conducive to setting up new industries that use much labor and little capital. And the last one is foreign trade raise the rate of profits by cheapening the element of both constant capital and necessity of life. Note that several of these factors that partially offset the falling rate of profit increase the rate of exploitation and further immiserates the proletariat. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Cui Chen Yi and my metric number is 270211. Now I will continue the capital accumulation and business crisis part. So according to Marx, the falling rate of profit is just one of capitalism's unsolvable difficulties. Another factor is the growing frequency of several business crises. Say's law was criticized by Marx, who claimed that Say's law only applied to simple commodity production. Small self-employed artisans generate commodities in order to trade them for goods they want to consume. The linen weaver sells his goods and uses the money to purchase food. So the process can be represented by CMC. The C represents the commodities linen and food, while the M is the medium of exchange, which is money. Then the process of exchange will become MCM under large-scale capitalist production. This is mean that people buy in order to sell instead of selling in order to buy. And money change into commodities such as labor power, raw materials and machinery. MCM prime is the correct representation of the capital process, where M prime is larger than M due to the amount of surplus value extracted from productive workers. Rapid investment in capital and labor results the increase in demand for labor and the wages that capitalists must pay. However, these higher wages reduce the rate of surplus value and profit, and also ending the expansion and sending the economy in the opposite direction. Then the depressions that destroy the monetary value of fixed capital, enabling the larger capitalists to buy up smaller ones at bargain prices. It also results some factories close, price of commodities fall, credit contracts and wages fall. Thus, the rates of surplus value and profit get restored, and once again the investment increase. Then I will proceed to technological unemployment part. Technological unemployment means that the loss of jobs caused by technological change. Labor is substituted with capital, and this causes the unemployment rate increase. Workers are thrown out of work by machinery, or stated in contemporary terms, become technological unemployed. Next, I will continue to discuss about the centralization of capital and concentration of wealth. Growing size of firm, weakening the competition into fewer hands. Let's imagine that capitalist is competing by same community for a lower price to attract customer. So, emerging of monopoly powers occur due to the increasing of capital centralizations and concentrations. So the more monopoly power exists, the largest firm is able to obtain economies of scale and producing at lower average cost as compared to smaller firms. This means that where there is a monopoly, largest firm will make more profit because largest firm can reduce the surplus value compared to smaller firms. So this results in the elimination of the smaller firms and the growth of monopoly firms occurs. Let's say that Capitalists become more successful when there is a competition between the larger, lower-cost firms and the smaller firms. Capital accumulations, economy of scale, and the dominance of the corporations in business organization would bring to the concentrations and centralizations of capital into fewer hands. This means that the capitalists will win because they exploit a labor, so eliminate our smaller business and become monopoly, increase the centralizations of capital and the concentrations of wealth. That's all of me. I will pass to next member. Thank you.
I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Ong Chai, metric number 270670. I will continue the presentation with Reserve Army of the Unemployed and Immobilization of the Proletariat. According to Karl Marx, the wages paid to workers tend toward the cultural subsistence because of the presence of a large reserve army of the unemployed. The worker is forced to work sufficiently long to create a surplus value for the capitalist. So, because of the falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment, the size of the industrial reserve army of the unemployed increased. Next, I represent on the class conflict in the mass law of motion of capitalism. Because of misery, slavery, increasing exploitation, workers increase a sense of solidarity and a desire to revolt as a result of the concentration of wealth in the hand of fewer. Capitalists and the absolute and relative poverty of workers together set the stage for class conflict, since history suggested that the polarization of workers and capitalists into two opposing classes do not occur, but a strong middle class has developed in the most of the advanced capitalist nations. Then workers overthrow the capitalists and establish a proletarian dictatorship. So capitalism is being replaced by socialism. In comparing the consequences of capital accumulation in Adam Smith and Karl Marx theory, I will start the discussion with Adam Smith and followed by Karl Marx. As you can see, the graph on the left side is Adam Smith's theory of economic development. Adam Smith contended that the division of labor spurs capital accumulation, which is shown by arrow A, and both work together to increase labor productivity, which is shown by arrow B. The increase in labor productivity will increase national output, which widen the market and justify further division of labor and capital accumulation, that's shown by arrow F. As a result of the capital accumulation, the wages fund increase and wages increase. So, higher wages motivate further productivity growth. The rise in national output will increase the goods available for consumption, which for Adam Smith constitute the wealth of nations. Next, the graph on the right side is Karl Marx's law of motion of capitalism. According to Karl Marx, labor is the source of all values, surplus value, and profit arise through exploitation of workers. Competition among capitalists results in capital accumulation, which is shown by arrow B, that will cause a falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment. These outcomes produce centralization of capital and concentration of wealth, as well as rising unemployment and poverty, which shown by arrow H, I, and J. The polarization of capitalists and workers lead to class conflict and the overthrow of capitalism. As a conclusion, Adam Smith believed that capital accumulation will bring positive effect because division of labor will spur capital accumulation that will increase productivity growth, then constitute the wealth of nations. While Karl Marx believed that capital accumulation will bring negative effect because capital accumulation will cause a falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment that will bring to increase of unemployment and poverty, then collapse of capitalism, which will replace by socialism. So that's all from our group presentation. Thank you.